welcome to another episode of Hardcore Minecraft with your boy Grand Zoo. This episode going from day 572 all the way to day 722. I'll explain a little bit of that later. But in this episode, I finally finish this ocean monument project, get the Guardian farm built as well as terraform and decorate this thing. In the last episode, I had finally finished the outer boundary, draining all of that, and now the only thing left to do for draining was the inside of the monument and underneath. After draining an ocean monument, the very last thing you want to do is keep draining, and especially dealing with mobs and everything. This was getting really frustrating, but I was finally so close to finishing. One of the last major obstacles was draining the underneath part, and the guardians were very concentrated down here. Putting little pillars in front of myself as I went was crucial. And after this, it would be just draining the inside. Mobs were spawning down here because it was incredibly dark, and I just wanted this to be done so I wasn't placing torches. I also tried to cut a corner here by doing a super wide little channel. That didn't work, so it was back to grinding some sand. On day 578 though, I almost lost the world when I entered one of the underwater sections through a small opening and almost couldn't get out. It was very close. So after having yet another heart attack, I collected myself and just wanted this to be over. I needed a break, so I focused on going into the inside of the monument and draining that. It went pretty well, but towards the end of it, it was almost as dangerous as underneath, if not more. Hey, Monument, you think you got enough guardians in here? Or do you need to spawn some more? For day 581 and 582, I finished draining the inside and there were no other close calls. It was pretty tedious, so I kind of skipped through it, and then I set up a double beacon to help me with the last little bit underneath. The entire reason that I did all of this was to build a guardian farm to get access to sea lanterns and some of these aquatic blocks. Didn't even really take any time to appreciate the magnitude of the project I was finishing. I just kept on grinding. On day 585, I finally finished hollowing everything out in the lower section, and I took a moment to appreciate it, then fell into a pit of death that I barely escaped. That made me work on something else for a while because I just couldn't deal with all the close calls anymore. I had to go back to my old mob grinder just to get some gunpowder to get me by. But I wanted to focus on fixing the iron farm and fixing the gunpowder farm finally. I thought for a while that it was the collection system and that this hopper minecart just wasn't efficient or it wasn't getting the right areas. So I made a new campfire hopper system. Eventually I'd figure out this wasn't the issue, but it was nice to know for sure that they were all going to the right space for collecting. Anticipating that this was going to be correct, I added significantly more storage because I wanted to AFK this thing a lot and have tons and tons of gunpowder finally. Thinking that I had solved the collection issue, I did AFK for a while, and for whatever reason it seemed like it was getting some of the materials but not collecting the gunpowder. I decided maybe it was a little too high, the AFK platform, so I lowered it by about 10 blocks, and finally I'd figured it out and everything was working. It took me nearly 600 days to finally sit down and figure out how to get my gunpowder farm working, but now that I finally had it, I've got a whole mess of TNT, a bunch of fire resistance pots, and I went to the Nether. But just before I left, I also finally utilized my zombie healer with a bunch of golden apples and weakness potions on my villagers. I should have done all of this long ago, but I am the world's best procrastinator, especially in Minecraft. But now I had some really cheap trades and I could focus on finally getting a ton of netherite. The last time I had done this, I only had about a stack and a half of TNT. This time I had easily 10 stacks, and I didn't even use all of it because I was finding so much netherite. As you could see, I did get 7 netherite ingots, and finally, after 600 days, I was fully kitted in netherite with even a few extra tools that were also netherite. I'm really sorry though, the recording stopped at day 601. I didn't notice because I was still playing, and I missed another 3 days before I realized it and was recording again. For that, I am sorry. I moved on to this new sugarcane farm in the spawn chunks in hopes that I could really get a lot more production. I had neglected this project as well forever, and it felt good to finally have something going. I also just wanted to say that through over 600 days, I think I had only missed recording maybe 10 days, and that was due to just either memory issues or not paying attention. But I've documented nearly all of this, okay? So don't even at me with this, oh, it's not a true 600 days or whatever you want to say. I have gotten nearly all of this, and I've told the whole story, okay? Anyway, back to the sugar farm. I was getting about 16 sugarcane for each one of these sections, and I built about 10 of them. So I was getting a little over 2 stacks, I think. Can't really do the maths. But I did build a nice little enclosure so nothing would sneak up on me, and gave this thing plenty of storage. Then I decided I did want to spruce up the spawn island a little bit, but this got pretty boring pretty fast. So I think in the future I would like another mega base here on the spawn island and eventually move everything over there. I worked on getting some building materials for that, including a bunch of iron blocks just because I can, and I don't really know what to do with all of the iron. Towards the end of this little build on the top, I had no idea where to go from there. Having taken a very long break, I decided it was time to finish the Guardian farm. This would be a giant glass box with a bunch of soul sand underneath it, and it would drive the Guardians up towards the middle, and they would fall down to a kill chamber. I got this design from one of my favorite YouTubers, a guy named Wadzi. He doesn't really do a tutorial, it's just in one of his hardcore videos. And I'm certainly not an expert farm builder, but this is how I did mine. I tried to go 16 by 16 wide and 7 blocks deep to make this big spawning chamber for the Guardians, and then you have to put in a bunch of soul sand. The part where it gets very challenging is once it's full of water, you're going to have to deal with the Guardians whether you're ready to or not. I did not build this thing very evenly and it did not look very good, but all I was concerned with was whether or not it would function. So I got all of this water flowing over the top like this, and eventually I would break the dirt to allow it to go down underneath. And this middle tube is where the Guardians would get pushed to fall into the kill chamber. I did not account for the glass underneath that was needed to get the water flowing in the right direction, so I had these bizarre gaps along the outside, and once I started putting in kelp, I realized that was going to be a major issue. I did as much as I could before I had to get more supplies, but by then the Guardians had started spawning and it was completely untenable. I had yet to finish the tube down to the kill chamber, or the kill chamber for that matter, and I think all of this in actuality ended up saving the world and my life in it, because I was not ready for the Guardians to spawn, and they were a-spawnin'. When I got back up to the farm, I still had to put kelp in there to make all the soul sand push them up to the top. With how many were in there, I had no idea how I was going to do that. I had heard Potion of Invisibility worked, but I hadn't done it myself. Brewing in Potion of Invisibility was the only way I saw myself getting through this. I made them all 8 minutes, and I would have to take all of my armor off in order for this to work. So I really could not let it lapse any moment where I didn't have invisibility. I very cautiously tested this out, and once I realized it worked, I tried to do this as fast as I possibly could, drinking extra potions well before they ran out. This part was actually kind of funny after the fact because I was drowning, but I thought that I was being attacked by the Guardians and I thought it was all over. So I made a conduit to make the rest of this a little bit easier so I didn't have to constantly leave the tank or waste time with the invisibility. I also learned that conduits need source blocks, and this is one of the ways that you can make that happen with seaweed on the inside. I was getting pretty close to this being done, and I made the collection system and the kill chamber and decorated it with some of these dark stairs. It looked really good. Once all of the soul sand was working, some of them were falling out of the top, so I put a roof on there, and this thing was finally ready to go. I'm sure there's a lot of other players out there that might have been able to finish this entire thing before me, but this was tens of hours of work, from draining the monument to getting it all ready and building the farm. This was a major accomplishment. I once again shed a single solitary tear of relief because the Guardian Farm and the Ocean Monument was actually done. For the next few days, I did AFK, just collecting all of this stuff that the Guardians drop. I was able to make a bunch of sea lanterns as well as the dark prismarine. For that, I needed to kill squid to get the black dye, but this farm was fully functioning and I couldn't be happier. It didn't take long for me to decide that I was making my new base here instead of in the spawn chunk. This monument project is my baby, and I got to work personalizing everything and making it my own. I knew I wanted to have some really cool staircases going up and down, and I wanted beacons at all 4 corners as well as a 6th beacon in the middle of the monument. That meant I had to go back to the wither killing chamber, and I think it was 12 of them before I left. I was also going with a jungle theme for around the monument, so I tried to get some of those materials, including saplings for the jungle trees. Now, in one of my previous episodes, I did install a 6th beacon here to make the wither fights easier, and I was now going to be fighting them 3 or 4 at a time, but I was having a lot of trouble spawning them as they need at least a full block of space around them. I figured out the issue, and it was off to the races, fighting 4 groups of 3 withers at a time. Seriously, I'm way too OP. I mean, I was legitimately fighting those guys, and that was 12 of them in groups of 3, and now I had 12 more beacons. I really did want to test myself to see if I could get even more of them killed in bigger groups, but it's such a pain to deal with spawning and building an area big enough for them underground, and I'm not going to do that above ground yet, maybe later in the series. However, now I had all the beacons I wanted currently for the monument base, and I was going to continue to be extremely OP anywhere I stepped. These ones on the corner are kind of purely decorative, but I decided I would go with speed and jump boost. Eventually I'm going to go back and change them all to jump boost because that's nice to have, because this base is so big, you need so many to cover the entire thing. And as a point of pride, I try to activate every beacon with a diamond. I don't know if I'll continue to do that because it's pretty wasteful, but it is kind of a flex. This place was now looking so incredible, especially with my colors going, but I had so much more to do. I had the staircases to finish as well as a bunch of terraforming, so I just kept grinding it out. I did try and use the jungle saplings at my tree farm, but it didn't really work well with the jungle trees. I did my best, but eventually decided to just go get a ton of saplings from a jungle. I was at the tree farm just grinding out getting some saplings, but this was pretty inefficient. After a while, I did just go back and start with the dirt and the terraforming, but eventually I'd have to go to a jungle biome for the saplings. I wanted to start with a layer of dirt covering all of the gravel around the monument, and then just trying to follow and make some more natural looking hills and everything where I could. With the few extra saplings I had, I started putting in some mega trees and regular trees, and while it doesn't look like much, I think this thing was really starting to come together here. All that hard work was finally paying off. I also grabbed some vines and started placing them around the monument. I think this is a really good touch, and once you let them grow out for a while, they start to look really cool. I did not know, but they will just continue growing, so I did put a few underneath each other, and that's just a waste. On day 638, I went over to a jungle biome near my house and just started chopping away at the trees. I was going to get as many saplings as I could, and I figured the project would need maybe a half stack, but it ended up being closer to a stack and a half. This was one of the few big hills that I built out for the terraforming process. I tried to have this one kind of follow up to the center. I probably will add some more later down the line. I'm just not quite the best at making it look natural. The creepers were really the only thing I was actually worried about right now. The other mobs can't even touch me, and I just don't want to waste totems, but it was just a long process of going back for saplings, collecting dirt, and placing everything. No matter how OP you are, the jungle is still very dangerous and there's tons of mobs. I was actually just cutting down most of these trees to the point where I just knew that the saplings would drop. Might go back and clean it up at some point, probably not, but I just didn't want anything to happen while collecting these. With every block I placed and every tree I grew, this place started looking cooler and cooler, and it just became incredibly fun after a while to just be terraforming this thing. What I didn't realize at the time, especially since I wasn't placing torches, is that I was basically creating a mob farm around the monument, and as the video goes on, you'll see they became increasingly more frustrating to deal with. Eventually I needed to heal my tools, but in one of the last episodes I had accidentally broke my gold farm. I don't know what happened, but the redstone for the killing chamber was off and they couldn't land properly, so I couldn't use looting. It was an easy fix by just adding some honey blocks to where the retractable honey blocks used to be, but for a while I just couldn't really think of this and thought this gold farm was just going to be broken. Now, this killing chamber floor used to be retractable, as I was saying, and it'd be cool if that feature could come back. I just don't know if I'll be able to mess with the redstone to fix it. So for now, it's just a looting only. You can't go completely AFK, but that's fine with me. On day 647, I was pretty much wrapping up. There was still a lot of dirt to place, especially underneath, but for the most part, this thing was finished. It was just making it look pretty. I did want to make another trip back to the jungle just because I felt like that backside needed just as many trees. During the nighttime while I was waiting for saplings to fall, I did all sorts of stuff, like I hunted squid, I got some obsidian just for the next time I need it, and kept chopping trees, but these things take forever for the foliage to break, so it was a waiting game at night. I just didn't want to deal with the mobs.
help you here.
On day 651, I was wrapping up most of the terraforming except for the dirt underneath, and this place was looking absolutely incredible. I also stopped by the Guardian farm to see how much I had collected and got bullied by that Enderman, but this thing was cranking out loot. Now, I did build that Guardian farm mostly for the sea lanterns, but I also wanted these dark prismarine blocks available anytime I wanted them. I'm not a great builder, but I just started with these staircases going up the siding, and they started to look really cool, especially once I added the sea lanterns. I was able to get these going up the 4 main sides, and then I started thinking about what I might do in the corners, and before I knew it, I was doing an incredibly time-intensive and expensive build. On day 652, I began terraforming underneath the monument, and there was just mobs everywhere. I was trying to put torches down as I went, and I was also AFKing to get more stuff for the dark prismarine. And this farm isn't the most efficient. It was giving me quite a bit, but I would need to go to another monument and tear it down to really get some work done. By day 658, I was getting bullied by mobs underneath while trying to finish this, and just as I had the blocks, working on the stairs. While hunting squid, I did come across another trident boy, but unfortunately he didn't drop anything. With the dolphin's grace though, it was hilarious just swooping past him. I still hadn't abandoned the AFK strategy, but it was just too slow. Like, I could not get enough blocks to finish this in a reasonable amount of time. So eventually I did go out and find a bunch more ocean monuments. I did check on the Guardian farm to just make sure it was working. I'm not really sure how to increase the efficiency on it, but as I had blocks, I just continued, and these staircases really started to take shape. Also, for whatever reason, it doesn't seem like my spawn chunk farms are always going, so I attempted to make an AFK platform that would work for the gunpowder farm, the sugarcane farm, and the guardian farm. I AFK'd there for a while, and I thought it was working, but it wasn't really getting the sugarcane or the guardian farm, just really the gunpowder farm, which was unfortunate. This was all starting to take just way too long, so I did do a solid 3-day AFK session from day 665 through day 667, but still didn't have enough. On day 669, while getting to the bottom of one of these staircases, a creeper did come along and ruin a bunch of hard work. I was super stoked. But after that, I just continued AFKing, and I did lose a couple days recording, but it was only AFK. I just figured, why get the film if all I'm doing is standing there? I was growing impatient though, so I tried to make this a looting farm, and it just wasn't really that effective. So eventually I just did another like 6-day AFK thing where I just was trying to get blocks. On day 675, I began draining this other monument on the inside so that I could mine out all of the blocks. There was still another Elder Guardian somewhere in here, and of course I always forget milk, so I stopped off and grabbed that. And then because of lag and Java glitch, I almost died during this because I could not move. On day 676, I finished the beacon in this new monument, got some haste on there, and went to work just destroying this thing. When I got back home on day 677 and 678, I finally had enough to just finish these staircases and, at least for now, complete this ocean monument build. It was very exciting. By day 681, I was actually finally finishing this. I was messing around a little bit with the staircases to see if I could add even more, which I will probably do at some point, but it was terraformed. The main staircases were built, the Guardian farm was done, and this project was finally coming to an end. Now, I was pretty happy with the final touches I was putting on this. It was going to be my base, so a nice little overlook of everything was a must. But here it was, just the very last final touches. Once I had finally finished this, I did go to AFK just to get a few more blocks, especially sea lanterns, and I made a huge mistake. I accidentally AFK'd all night. I fell asleep. It went from day about 684, 85, all the way to day 720. That's on me. I'm sorry, but not the end of the world. Even though I AFK'd accidentally for that long, it didn't take away how big an accomplishment this was. This is single-handedly the biggest project I've ever done in my life. So happy to see the final product, and it just looks incredible. So if you enjoyed the episode and you'd like to see me continue on this world, please like and subscribe. I plan on doing many more builds like this. I've had a really great time with this hardcore world, and this will be my long-term hardcore world. I'm going for thousands of days, basically just as long as I can go without dying in this world, and I'm looking forward to doing many other big builds and other crazy projects. So please follow along with the channel. There will be plenty more hardcore content coming out, and with that, I will see you in the next one.